Hello, welcome to the Node.js Community N-API Team meeting for September 20th, 2018. As always, we're going to start with a review of our things in our milestones. So let me just share those here. So just looking at what we have left in milestone 10, the first thing is SQLite NAPI port resolve Mac issue. As I mentioned, Anisha is working on that slowly in the background. She is a student on call, so doesn't have as much time. It seems to be around. I think she's gotten the test cases to pass. But what was noticed is that if tests fail, they just hang in one case, or if we have C++ exceptions disabled, and if C++ exceptions are enabled, it actually throws the C++ exception, which is interesting because I think we'd expect that to have been caught somewhere and turned into a JavaScript exception. But it's a bit of a challenge to debug because the tests run with Mocha, and there's kind of like several layers to be able to do things like get stack traces or debug, and so pushing ahead on that, but still trying to figure out basically the flow of either, where is it hanging, or in the case of the C++ exception enabled case, what's the stack trace that led to this C++ exception, causing an abort as opposed to it being caught and converted to a JavaScript exception. So working away, but turns out to be fairly challenging. Any questions on that one before I move on? If not, then next one is investigate user pre-build with NAPI number 291.
Yes, so I have I've done everything that I can do with my pull requests. So I'm just waiting for the maintainer to land those. So so far I've not received feedback yet on the two commits I made last week.
Okay. But it's just been a week, is that right?
Right, exactly, Michael.
Okay. Sounds good. Sounds like it's ready to go. Just maybe wait a little longer. If it takes more than a few weeks, maybe we can think about how to ping or whatever. But for now, it seems totally reasonable.
Okay, good.
Next one is documentation push on NAPI, Node add-on API. That one, I think, Nicola, I know that maybe I should check that off, that these guys all were landed. And so I think the last thing is you have a PR already open to do the sort of last cleanup. Is that right?
Yeah, right. And there are some reviews. So I try to fix as suggested. And if you want give another review, or maybe we can consider to land these, and after go to for a fine grain to piece by to update other part of the documentation that I missed.
Right. I'd be happy to land this and do it as a separate pass. If anything, I think that's easier because there'll be, those new additional PRs will be easier to review. And I don't really see any downside in landing what you've already got because it's only an improvement in my opinion. I guess, and you've already addressed the comments that were there.
Yeah.
So like Gabriel, do you have any thoughts on, just land this and open new ones, or do you want to review some more?
No, I mean, it was just a matter of consistency. That's all. And so, I mean, I can have another look, but I think it's okay to land because, I mean, it's not like it's going to break anything.
And I think this brings us a lot closer to consistency. If there's still
exactly.
gaps,
Yeah. So if there's anything, we can probably just take a reactive approach, right?
Yeah, or or if somebody wants to do another pass through, I think that's still good. I just figure this is big enough, and there's enough changes that actually getting the ones that are okay in, and
Yeah,
then
for sure.
the
Yeah.
next one makes reviewing easier for all of us.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I can go and give it a thumbs up.
Okay. And then Nicola, yeah, if you're volunteering or want to do another pass, that would be great, or anybody else. But or
Okay.
if Gabriel, if there's certain places where there's still some things, opening an issue that says here's some additional places we can fix up or clean up would be good.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, Michael.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. Arnesh is in the lobby, I believe.
Sorry. Okay, let me find where that is for participants and attendees. Yep. Done. Thanks. Okay, so it sounds like we'll go ahead and land that one. And that'll let us basically, I think, close out the documentation push. Maybe a little bit more work, but I don't think that necessarily needs to have a separate, unless anybody disagrees, I don't think it needs like a separate thing in the milestone anymore. No. Okay. Great. So I'm going to flip over to milestone 11 then. 11. So I moved over these, burned down the list of issues raised by module owners, burned down list of issues in their node repo. I did do a little bit of a push this week to try and land a bunch of the Node add-on API things that are out there. Suggested a new release, which Nicola has volunteered to do. I think we have about four issues I suggested we land, and then we go ahead and do that. Are there any other ones or specific issues people want to call out that we need to talk about?
Maybe a brief mention. There's this inheritance thing that's been one of the issues, which is to implement like an extends thing in NAPI so that people can subclass and have signatures on their methods and have the type check pass. And the person on the V8 side who seems to be the expert on this has returned, so I've resumed conversation with him about implementing this, and maybe we'll get some support from V8 for this, because right now the thing that's holding it back is that you cannot subclass something that you've defined using NAPI define class. You can't subclass it from NAPI. You can only subclass it from JavaScript, and so we're starting to define a V8 API that we would need for this to work. And so that's pretty good. I'm not sure if it's going to materialize, but he seems to be the person to talk to. So that would be awesome, because then we can have proper subclasses defined in an API. And we could have something like NAPI extend class or something like that. And then you give it a function valued NAPI value, and then you can, it's basically the same thing as calling NAPI define class, except you have a base class rather than not having a base class. So that might be a future API.
My only concern would be, what about other JavaScript engines? We don't want to add something that is difficult or not in anything else, right?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Before we add it, I mean, look, for V8 to have this would be great. Mm-hmm. And I suspect that other JavaScript engines should be able to accommodate this because they don't have this problem with function templates and all that. Because the only thing that's holding this whole thing back is the inability to retrieve the function template from the function. And so what he suggested was that we add an API to the function object, which allows you to extend. Okay. And it's good. It's a good to have, like even if not in an API. And I mean, in other engines, we can fall back to like prototype assignment, because that's functionally equivalent. And I think it's only V8 that has this exception where, if it has this illegal invocation. I haven't seen other engines throw these illegal invocations. So I'd have to double check, but I think prototype assignment is pretty much equivalent to subclassing in other engines. And
okay, I'm not saying doesn't make sense or isn't good. Like I think it's good to make an improvement there. Just that would be the one thing to keep in mind in terms of we don't want to add something that then the other implementators or duct tape or whatever can't implement. But otherwise, if it's a limitation that really only affects V8 and all the other ones are going to be happy and we unlock that, that's only a good thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, before submitting a new NAPI, I would definitely try to at least do it on Chakra Core as well, and then go from there. So,
yeah, no, sounds good. I guess related, not a bad time to mention, I've seen two things this last week. One was like somebody's got an experimental JSC port of like Node running on JSC. And then there was also the, I think the iOS port from Neonius. Is that right? Was it? No, so the iOS was the JSC one, but there's also like a more embedded one from Neonius, which was Node.js on duct tape.
Yeah, and there's also Shadow Node. The folks from IoT.js, they actually filed an issue in ABI stable Node, saying that they also wrote an NAPI implementation on top of JerryScript. So
right, okay.
And they're actually more serious about it than I am, because I just kind of wrote it as an experiment, but they seem to want to support it, and so my takeaway from the issue was that they would like us to package the NAPI tests as an NPM package, so that they can also run the test suite, and that's actually something we might want to talk about at some point. Like,
yeah, no, we should have an issue. There is an issue for that, I guess, but we should put that on our radar. Do you think there's any chance of getting somebody from Shadow Node to join this team?
Well, I can certainly comment on the issue.
Yeah, that would be worthwhile, because if they're interested in like, having another, if they're going to be pushing the JerryScript port of NAPI, having them involved, then would be good.
Yeah. Okay, so let's see. I'm just going to search for Shadow Node.
So those other two that I mentioned, they don't have any. They actually don't have NAPI ports yet, but it shows more of a drive to be having Node running on other platforms or engines. And I think if they don't need it in the short term, longer term, it will likely still makes sense, so that modules would run on those platforms without having to be specific.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the.
Do you know who did this JSC port?
It seems to be a researcher. I'd asked if it was somebody from Apple itself, and I think the answer was no. The link to the repo is in the updated deck that I sent you.
Yeah, the MCE system.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you turn your mic up at all, or is it maybe my volume is low?
Sorry, hold on.
No, it's okay. That's better. I turned my volume up, although now other people might be louder. Yep.
So do you think I should invite them to the Zoom chat in this issue?
Yeah, I think that would be a good. If they're interested, sort of like as somebody who's maintaining an NAPI port, would it make sense for you guys or you people to join us on a regular basis, right?
Yeah, that would be good. Okay, because
go ahead.
We already had the discussion up to the point where we named the repo, and you suggested Node.js N-API test suite. So yeah, this could actually take off.
Yeah, and then they could kind of it seems to me they would be a champion for that effort.
Yeah, there's only one concern that I remember having, and that's that if we do factor out the tests into a separate repo, then we would have to sort of copy that repo into the Node.js code base as deps NAPI test suite, and then we'd have to integrate that with what do you call that? The test running framework that we have in CI.
Jenkins or?
No, not Jenkins. It's a format. It's like an output format that we use.
TAP or?
Yes, that's it. TAP. Yeah.
So my thought was more to try and automatically leave the test as part of Node Core, but through some sort of automation, extract them from there into a form that other people could run.
Oh yeah, yeah, okay. And
right, because
then
I don't really want to have them separate and something we got to pull in and whatever, because they are part of core. But if we could extract and package so that other people could then do that, use them, I think that would be the path to go.
yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, come to think of it, that's probably doable with something like Bower, because Bower, that's what it does. It copies a repo into your repo. So yeah, I guess this is something that these folks could do. And
exactly, and if they were here, we could sort of support and enable them.
Yeah. Okay.
And like, if we need to do things like set up CI to do, run the job automatically, I'm happy to help on that front. And so I think, yeah, if we can get them.
So many VMs interested in this. I mean, I think we should think about the NAPI getting into the core. Or is that something we want to take on?
You mean using NAPI for core modules?
Yeah.
I
mean, there are some performance characteristics that current version does not allow you to port it directly, right?
I mean, I think it's who's, it'll be enough work. You'll need somebody who's going to willing to step up to champion that.
Right. Yeah, there'll be like, I mean, the high level, the work would be to kind of understand the performance characteristic, right? And what are the strategies to mitigate them?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, personally, that's something I'd see this team support. But I think it really needs somebody who's going to have enough time to champion and push it forward.
Right. Yeah. Because certainly there's a lot of interest in this. I mean, the one thing is to how to link this to NAPI-based module growth. And I was talking to Alexis, the Genea Systems guy, and he did an iOS port of Chakra Core and built a Node system for that, and has a few apps in the App Store which are using this. And I was like, well, do you need an API? And he was like, he didn't run into any native modules in the mobile space. So I was like,
Okay.
Well, he may not have, but I remember when we had a meeting with Nodejs Mobile, they are also working on using Node.js as sort of a runtime for Android and iOS, and they certainly had trouble with native modules. They mentioned that they need things like JIP settings for iOS and for Android, which are different from the normal Node.js modules, and that since they use Node.js as a shared library rather than as an executable on Windows, they need to link against node.dll, and so if the module is built normally, then it links against node.exe, and so that doesn't resolve on Windows. So this using using Node.js in an embedded setting, I know then I guess of at least two such use cases, right?
Right.
And so at least one of those two has need for native module support.
Yeah, and that is an area I'm still trying to. Unfortunately, Yihong, who I was going to rely on to champion the sort of embedding push, has moved on to something else. So I'm trying to see if I can get somebody else to reinvigorate. We had the one meeting to reinvigorate that, because I think it's not strictly NAPI related, but you're right, it does have some synergy in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Node.js Mobile person, I think Joao Reis, I think is his name. He is a collaborator as far as I know. So
Joao is actually, he's in the same company as
Alexis.
as Alexis. So I suspect they're working on the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's right.
So, okay, so they may have decided that native modules are too much trouble.
Or either that or Alexis wasn't, it wasn't aware of what Joe was running into, or they decide, they found some other workaround or another way around it or something.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'd love to talk to them some more about this and see if we can make any add any sort of configuration to a common.jippy or add-on.jippy or something like that would help them out, because that would be the way to go, I think. But the fact that he is a collaborator tells me that he should have maybe made a few PRs of the things that he has seen, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, he does maintain a fork, which is Node.js Mobile, so he certainly has it in there. And given that this whole thing is monolithically built all the time, because they are apps running on mobile, then building them off the fork makes perfect sense. But I'm not sure if we could backport some of this to upstream,
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation.
Yeah, because the other thing that it involves, and I think that this is probably where it gets very difficult, is that if we backport these things, then we would want to dedicate at least a job to building on mobile,
Sure.
so that we can actually test that. But at that point, it becomes a very big project, because we need to get infrastructure support for that and everything.
Yeah, we've had the same challenges with, I guess, people show interest in Android, but actually testing on Android isn't necessarily that easy. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, because you'd have to get a job up with an emulator and that kind of stuff. I mean, we'd almost start duplicating what Browser Stack does at that point. So yeah, I'm it's kind of a chicken and egg problem. It seems to be in high demand, but on the other hand, there's a pretty big barrier to entry.
Right.
So I'm not sure how we could do this in small increments. But anyway, yeah, it's yet another thing to
keep think about. So I think we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but I guess Arunish is just back. We were on that tangent. We were about to move on to the next issue. Is there anything else?
I'm sorry. I just got a phone call that I had to attend. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. So I guess the next topic in our, were there any other issues in terms of burning down or issues that are in the repo that people wanted to mention before we moved on? Okay, so the next issue is topics for the Collaborator Summit. So we had a few items. I just formatted it a little bit more to put this into the proposed agenda. So people can read through that, see if we should add something to the agenda. Do we think this is reasonable?
I wonder, Michael, if we want to add if there are any good entry points for people to start, if there's certain targeted issues that we might have available.
Right. Okay. Like that?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, what I was thinking too is that to sort of minimize, time people have to spend for prep. I mean, most of this we would do relatively informally, unless somebody wants to volunteer to put a set of slides and stuff like that. I think we could start out with, if we see that in the room we get a number of people who are new to NAPI, we can sort of just, verbally give an overview, pull up some of the repos, walk people through it. Then I thought we could go through here, I think we want to have a base agenda, but if there's a bunch of people, there's 10 people there who want to talk about some specific NAPI thing that we don't have on an agenda, we should do that, right? So we should then adjust the agenda based on who's there and what they want to talk about. Then we have the hands-on. So again, I just thought whoever feels most comfortable among us can can help to walk through the files. So we'll just bring up Node API and Node API under CC and walk through the content there to help explain it. Same with Node add-on API, and really just that be driven by what people think of mentioning, questions that come up, stuff like that. We can then similarly look at, the current areas in our milestones as, starting points for the good areas, as well as, if there's, look at the open issues and, see if there's some that we think are good for people to jump into.
Yeah.
I think one for sure is like Node add-on API. We have a list of those things that aren't tested yet. So that's a good area where people could start filling in the testing, right?
Yeah.
Then planning for the future. So somebody had mentioned improving the API consistency. So we could have a discussion on that, and then whatever else.
I think we should kind of also try to discuss how to improve adoption. And what are the ideas some people people have?
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Or maybe I'll make that accelerate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any other things?
No, it looks good.
I mean, so I'd say continue to comment. We can add things. I just want, if we were to go into the summit today, are we all happy enough that this is, we'd start with this and make it work?
How long is this?
It's an hour and a half.
It's an hour and a half. All right. Yeah, there's plenty to discuss, based on the current agenda.
Yeah, I think it would definitely keep us busy, and then hopefully we'll get some new people, and we can drive it a little bit to help engage those new people if we need to as well.
Is there a particular strategy that we want to deploy to attract new people?
I don't have like a marketing plan in mind. I just think, if we look at the team here, last JS Interactive, we had the presentation. We ended up with, at least 2-3 very active contributors out of that. If we managed to do that again, that would be a success for me.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah. I think in the talk, we should call out that there'll be this meeting that people can come to as well.
Yeah, I think we should call out, like, after the last year, we had some people join and are now some of our most active collaborators. So, hey, why don't you be the next one?
Right.
There's a bird of a feather talk right after this. So if you want to come and talk and touch base, whatever.
Right.
And in the Collaborator Summit, we even have time for a deeper dive. So come and see us there as well.
Right. Right on.
Okay, so comment in there, but I guess I'm going to not worry about this too much more. If we go in with this, I'm happy. And if you think we should tweak it before then, otherwise let us know, and still we can tweak it either way, but makes sense. So back to the milestone, create matrix of tested methods. So yeah, okay, I guess I should update that, but we have this initial list of ones, which I believe are the ones that aren't tested. And Andrew is also working on like a make coverage target for Node add-on API. So we'd be able to run that, and it'll actually give us, just like if you looked at coverage.nodejs.org, we see coverage numbers for all of Node Core, C and JavaScript. This one would just be C, but it would give us a clear view of what we're testing and what we're not testing.
Who's Andrew, by the way?
Andrew, he's an intern here in IBM.
Oh, okay.
So Anisha's. So we have rotating interns. I think they're like an 18-month internship.
Oh, nice.
Anisha is now back at school, so we have a new intern. I don't have all of their time, but I try and get a bit of their time to help out on these kinds of things.
That's great. Yeah.
So that's where that one is at. So this is an area where, like, I think this milestone we should focus on. We haven't done it yet, but once we're comfortable, we have the list going out with a call to say, hey, if you want to help out, here's a great way to help out by adding tests to these methods, right? It's a good way to dive in and start to do stuff. Okay, advocating badges. Gabriel, what we're doing on that one?
We have a PR in Node main repo, in the Node main repo, and that received a -1 from Anna, but the author has updated the PR, so there should be no problem with it. But we still want the -1 revoked, obviously.
Okay. What's the link to that PR? I should just throw it in here.
Sure. Yeah, I just saw it. Let me see it again. So that would be here.
So was it like a concern over where it was in the doc?
Yes. Anna had a very legitimate concern in that we don't want to link to an outside site, because then their site reflects our usage, our site usage to some extent.
Okay.
And so we should link to an internal one. Here is the PR with one of the comments.
Okay, I'm just going to add it in there. PR to add some text. Okay, so anyway, it's not a fundamental, we don't want to do this issue, it's just a how it's done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So just a layman's thing, how do people use it, by the way?
So there would be some SVGs in one of the Node.js subdirectories, and they would simply use it from there.
Oh, so they just put this in their README?
Yeah, or they can link to it. I think you can display like an SVG using a URL. So you just image source and then docs.nodejs.org/something or other, and then you would see it. And we would copy the SVGs from shields.io, and we would ship them as part of the Node.js source tree. And so when the documentation gets released on docs.nodejs.org, these SVGs would end up in the assets directory, and so people could link to them off of that directory directly.
And the module author was displaying this badge is supposed to kind of just say what version they are supporting, or?
Yes. They choose the badge that reflects the NAPI version against which they wrote their module.
Okay, so that is just arbitrary. I mean, there's no like test passing or
no. There's no machinery behind it. It's just an indication that yes, hello, I am NAPI. Behold.
Okay. And there's I think we talked about this last time, but there's no way to kind of centrally be aware of all these badges there, right? Or is there a way to search them? Is there a way to see who are using these badges?
I doubt that. No, I don't think so. Like we don't get any feedback. I mean, no, I can't say that there would be. I mean, we would know how many times the SVG file was accessed, which gives you sort of an indirect count of how many people are viewing pages of NAPI modules, but that's fairly...
So we will have that data? How many times the SVG files were accessed?
I believe so, because we control docs.nodejs.org, so we could filter the logs for how many times those SVG files were downloaded. I'm fairly certain. I mean, that's something for the infrastructure team to answer, but I think we can do that. Like, I mean, we can get stats on every URL that is served by one of our servers, I think. So
the raw logs may be available somewhere, and then it would be a matter of being able to crawl them. Reading through that issue, I do see there's still questions about whether the core docs are the right place. So I guess it is something. Do we think the core docs in particular give us more visibility, better visibility than the Foundation website? I mean, certainly it's a higher visibility than the Node add-on API repo. But it seems like there's more convincing that this is a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's quite a few approvals, and Anna Anna just objected to the mechanism. So in that sense, this is good to go. But you're right in that.
Well, I see Colin kind of said seems odd, and it was
Yeah,
still
yeah.
the, well, not sure this makes sense.
Why not just write it out in the project's README? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. I guess it's a tough call, but I mean, at least in my opinion, putting this at the top of the NAPI documentation is where it makes the most sense, because that's the documentation that people will be reading when they're porting their module, and so
Right.
so this kind of gives them a goal to
Yeah.
work towards, you know. It's like, okay, yes, I did all this. I went to this document a million times, and now finally I can use the badge because it's all
Right.
an API now.
Like
You know?
maybe if you can comment in there, like it's basically make the case that we want this so that it helps awareness promotion of NAPI.
I did.
Yeah. Okay.
Here it is, like right after Colin's comment and after the author reopened it, I made the comment saying that we're taking this step to drive adoption of NAPI. We do so after having received feedback and support in Node.js/admin #221.
Right.
So I did answer him.
Yeah. Okay. So I do see that there. Yeah.
So and he didn't seem to take the argument any further. So, and he did say that he doesn't feel strongly enough to block. So I don't know if there's anything else that I need to say.
I guess it's just, you know, if Anna is convinced or not, right?
Yeah. And we're waiting on her. So it's.
But I mean, the last comment kind of says she wasn't convinced. So I think we need to do more.
Oh yeah. Okay, I see that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I guess it's going beyond documentation. It's kind of turning into like a I don't know, like a promotional thing.
It is. So I don't know. It might make sense to reach out to her and kind of say, you know, it's like it's probably the best pace to achieve that goal, and is the downside, like, even if it's not a perfect fit, what's the negatives that outweigh the benefit that we see anyway, right?
Yeah.
So her main concern is that the make doc output is going to override it, or
that and that maybe such recommendations do not belong in like a documentation, like an API reference, because this doesn't concern itself with the API. It concerns itself with decorating your package. So it's kind of off topic for an API reference document. I think
we do have another one, which was, I think there was a document that was like the guide on publishing an API modules.
Yeah.
That would be another place, but not as visible, right?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, most people know how to publish modules, and they understand that NAPI is a different interface, and so they'll simply start going through their module and start changing stuff over to an API and go directly to the API docs, I think. So, you know, I don't think they need a guide on how to publish an API module. You know, I mean, the guide concerns itself mostly with you know, publishing under an experimental flag and all that, but that's kind of out of date, because NAPI is not experimental anymore. Right. So it is perfectly acceptable to have the next version of your module be an NAPI module.
Yep. Yeah. No. So it's really.
I mean, is it possible to address Anna's concern about by putting a link in the main API reference document to this badge requirement on the API stable repo, or?
Well, it's already pretty terse. Like, you know, it's just a short blurb and a couple of links. So I don't know how much further we can compress that, you know? So, I mean, if you look at the change, it's not that big, right? Or is it?
Well, I've brought it up there. It's like
no,
you said,
it's
like 5 lines, right? So it's not a...
Yeah,
not
the
really
rest is just...
thing.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not much else we can say, you know?
Well, I mean, I think the point we should make across to Anna is that this is not like a third party thing. It's a benefit to Node, and even if it looks like a marketing thing, it's not like outrageous.
Right.
No. Yeah, it's a tough call because I mean, yeah, on the one hand, she's right that it should concern itself strictly with the nitty gritty of NAPI, but then where do we put it if not there, and how do we make it visible if not there?
Okay, well let's continue the discussion in the issue a little bit, and then
and besides, I mean, it's to her now, so she can answer in addition to just the mechanical issues. And if she doesn't, then we can ask her in the issue, I guess, because the mechanics seem to have been addressed.
Right. I think the remaining thing is still it seems out of place, right? So
yeah.
I think we need to explain, discuss.
How much pull would like a blog post have? We now have these badges kind of blog posts.
We should do that, right? It's just where do we point to?
No, so how about we do this? How about we put this recommendation on API stable node as well, and while we are trying to get this in the API reference as well. The reason why I'm saying is like we need to at least be out that there's a badge available. Yep. I want to talk to Mark and say, well, he has a NAPI enabled module.
Yep.
Use this badge, and hoping to kind of get a few badges available before the talk, so that we can kind of start talking about it.
That's certainly something we should do. But when it comes to the actual badge, we may want to have like an authoritative URL for it, so that people don't start making their own. Because I mean, they can just go to Shields.io, type in three words, and they have a badge. So
right, but it would be publishing this content. Just publish it in the Node add-on API repo or something like that, like in the README.
Right.
Add it in a section there. Maybe put the actually assets in. I don't know. I guess is in our GitHub okay versus somewhere else?
That's the question. Yeah, like where do we put the assets? Because they should be in some sort of authoritative place.
Right. So, but I think being in the Node add-on API repo would be fine for those.
Yeah, I guess. Although these concern themselves with the C API rather than the C++ API. So,
oh, sorry, I meant the API stable node.
Oh, API stable node. Yeah. Yes.
Right, like we want the visible. The reason we had put it in core is we just want it visible there. The actual badges, if we're going to have SVGs of our own, could be easily there. And so the initial version of the doc could just be in our API stable node repo, and then we retain those links for anywhere else that it's documented.
Yeah.
I think if it is getting stiff resistance, then we just need to get the badge out in a meaningful way. And this API stable node is a Node Foundation repo.
Yeah, true.
So I think I would do that in parallel. I wouldn't necessarily just give up necessarily on this other one.
Yeah,
but it's,
exactly.
Do like a duplicate in, because we probably want it there anyway. Like if somebody comes to API stable node, we still want it to be visible.
In order to do that, though, we kind of need to sort of get up to speed, get the repo up to speed, because we haven't updated the actual repo in a long time. We've only been using the issues, right? So we should probably pull from master in the main repo so that the actual NAPI document is up to date, and so that the PR, this PR applies cleanly there.
Well, but no, because we don't have any.
What part is
we don't have any branches with code anymore. We have one with prototypes. Really, it's just a doc repo. So the default is doc, So I would just add it in, like on the main README. I would just add it in on the main README.
Oh, okay, yeah.
We're not saying make it in a fork of it. It's like put the content into this repo. So there could be like, we now have data meeting notes. There could be a separate badges subdirectory where the actual images live.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then just add the text in. So basically we can, anybody comes to that one sees, oh, there's these badges. I can use them. Great. And then if we actually put that content in other places, we can still point it back to the one badges place, right?
Yeah. Okay. So let me think then. So then I don't know. Should I?
That's certainly not as good as the API doc, but it's a place where we could talk about it and start doing some promotion.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I suppose I can do that because, like, I kind of don't want to step on this person's toes because they already submitted a PR.
Yeah. So maybe you could reach out to them, like, create. If you could reach out to them, explain that, and maybe they'll volunteer to do it in API stable node, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So as a subdirectory. Okay, because we have data and we have meeting notes. Yeah, so we could do a subdirectory called badges, which has the README MD, which just has that blurb that we would otherwise add to the docs, and the actual SVGs. Okay.
Well, actually, I might just put the SVGs there, and the README isn't so big. I would put the text almost in the main README.
Okay.
And actually, we need to update that.
Yeah, this has been quite stale.
Yeah, so we should update that, I think, anyway.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So,
okay. So actually, yeah, we should. I could
update ABI stable README, add a blurb from PR to README, add badges to.
Yeah, that whole README does need a.
Yeah, shakedown.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So okay. So then I will do that as part of this PR, and then we'll go from there. So
Sounds
that's
good.
I guess that takes care of the badges part.
Okay. Document limitations of ABS stability by an API. I know, Gabriel, you had a couple PRs.
I think those are closed, but I remember Nicola and I we discussed another thing that we might want to PR, but I never got around to doing it. So not sure if we should close this. It's closable-ish, but we should probably get rid of that last issue that we discussed in one of the comments, and then
I would either. Maybe you need to paste that. Is that in one of these? In one of the comments? It's already.
Oh boy, Nicola, do you remember where we talked about that? Is he still here? Yeah, Nicola, do you remember?
In this issue, okay, just.
We had another one in Node add-on API.
Yes, but I think that it's closed.
Oh man.
One more.
Let me try to find it. ABI. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so 326 is the one that landed on Node add-on API. That was my pull, I think. Yeah, so yeah, this is not where that was. Okay, wait a second. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I have the issues, but I don't have that one comment. Oh, for crying out loud! I need to find that. Okay. Well, I don't know. I can freshen that up offline, and then and I can link it to the milestone issue.
Yeah, if we just like, so that way we know what we're waiting on, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, and this one I think we're basically done because we agreed last time we've got what we need for the community corner session. Okay, well, I think we're right on time. Is there anything else people want to discuss before we call it a day?
Michael, on milestone 11, we also have our workshop at NodeConf EU.
Right.
So should we create an issue on that?
Yes. Yeah.
And,
Yep.
By the way, it looks like I'm also going to NodeConf EU. So
excellent.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Okay, so that's great. So yeah, I guess this, and I stopped sharing it, but yeah, I think if Jim, if you want to open an issue there,
I'll do it, Michael.
Yeah.
Okay, good, and I'll put some notes in there.
Yeah, we don't have everything from our milestone overview in the milestones yet. So if we'd had more time, I would have jumped to that. But yeah, having that issue there would be great.
Okay, I'll throw that in there, Michael.
Okay, thanks.
All right, and I'll set up some time next week with you, Michael, to go over the.
Okay.
And
yeah, if we can go through the deck because we don't have too much time left.
Right, and thanks for the updates. I'll try to kind of beautify it if it's possible.
Okay. And if you can also take a look at the other.
Yeah, I have looked at it. I haven't gotten around to kind of put down my thoughts.
Because really, I'm just kind of waiting for your input before going back to the rest of the larger team to move it forward.
Yeah, no, I will respond to that as well. Early next week for sure.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, talk to y'all later.
Yep.
All right, talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.